So why don't you start with giving us your name and what you do?
Name, rank, and serial
Yeah.
number.
Sure, yeah.
Well, my name is Sister Elise Marie Ramirez, and when I sign my name, I put an O period and a P period because that stands for the kind of sister that I am. So I am in the Order of Preachers. I'm a Dominican sister. So that's kind of my name, rank, and serial number. And a sister means I'm a Catholic sister, Roman Catholic sister. And I'm purposefully saying that rather than the very familiar word nun, because, as you well know, Sam, I'm not a nun. I'm a sister. There are nuns. Nuns are another kind of the consecrated life.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
What age did you become a sister and why?
Well, I entered when I was 26. And I probably thought about it when I was little.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, once I was in a play and I dressed up like a nun. I think I was in the first grade,
Yeah.
kindergarten or first grade. And then one Halloween I dressed up like St. Monica because the sisters that were teaching us had us dress as saints. And my mom could do a St. Monica really easy. But my patron was St. Elizabeth, who is a queen,
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth of Hungary. So I was 26 when I entered. I thought about it before then, but then it went out of my head. And then 26 would just, bing, be a sister. And I said, okay, that's not true.
Yeah. So what things held you back from becoming a sister?
Well, things held me back. Well, I don't know if I would think about it as being held back. I think life happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so a part of life for me was my family and my friends and studying and my job and my love life. And all of that just kept coming together pretty well, and it was kind of fun and having a great time. I had this big dream that when we graduated college, we would go, some girlfriends and I, we would go to Europe. And they graduated, I didn't. And we went to Europe. And I remember coming home and sitting in the apartment and thinking, now what? I mean, it's like saving your money and having this big plan to be able to do that, you know, and did it.
Yeah.
Been there, done that. And I remember sitting there and thinking, what next? And God provided what next, because shortly after that, I met a really great guy. And we met in the context of a retreat. That makes it safe, right?
Yeah.
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 Anyway, we met in the context of a retreat. We were actually on a team at a college helping out. Neither of us were in college, but we were on a team. It was called Koinonia. It was a college campus. And we met, and he was great, and a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I know. And when you get a catch like that, you just,
Yeah.
you just go full steam ahead. So, and we fell in love and talked about getting married, and then one year, right around Thanksgiving, he asked me to marry him, and I said yes, and that was exciting. But he was very practical. And one very practical thing about him was that he was going to be getting his income tax return right around Easter. That was his plan, and we would get a ring then. So I did not have a ring. Mm-hmm. You know, you look back and you wonder, guys, get the ring. No, I'm kidding. So I don't know if any of that held me back as much as life unfolded, and as it unfolded, one of the things that happened was that I got real involved. My girlfriends were involved with something called the Charismatic Faith Community. Do you know what that is?
No, I do not.
Charismatic means Holy Spirit.
Okay.
So it was a prayer community that let the Holy Spirit work in them. And that was a large community. It met out at the Franciscan Mother House, way out. Do you know where that is? Out by Camp Butler?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
Okay, so anyway, we met out there, and all age levels, Some of us were college students and older, and others were older. A couple of priests, sisters, Dominican sisters, Franciscan sisters. I think there may have been an Ursuline sister. I went to Ursuline Academy, so I knew the Ursuline sisters really well. I had the Dominican sisters in grade school. So I'm answering your question, what held me up. It's not really holding up. It's letting, it says it's all the way the Spirit and grace works in our lives. So anyway, I end up at this charismatic prayer community, and we met every Wednesday night of the world, and once a month, that Wednesday was a charismatic mass. So it was a regular mass, but it was the emphasis of the Holy Spirit, and so the music went on forever, and it was great, drums, guitars, you name it, horns, flutes. It was great. So I didn't know I loved to pray with the Bible open on my lap. Because when you go to those prayer meetings in those days, we would open the Bible and somebody would name a passage or just read a passage, and the whole group would just pray spontaneously. It was really cool. Anyway, that's when I met the Dominican sisters again. So I had them in grade school. And then fast forward, all those years, and I met them again in that charismatic prayer group. And my boyfriend, we'll call him John. Protect the innocent. Change names to protect the innocent. So anyway, John went a couple times with me, but he wasn't really into it. That was okay. But we had our faith and the importance of our faith in common. I remember one time his car broke down. I'm just thinking of this right now. His car broke down on Valentine's Day, and he wanted to surprise me, and he left a teddy bear with chocolates outside my apartment door. And I remember that I saw it, and I knew about his car, and I remember thinking to myself, well, who could this be from? Thinking I had some secret admirer. Because his car is broken, I figured he didn't do it. Anyway, looked out, and later, I realized it was him, and he walked all the way. And if you knew where he lived and where I lived, I know, it was just so precious. It was that important. I know. So all that kind of thing going on at the same time that I was, really experiencing a deep experience of God in my life. So everything was wonderful and coming up great, and I was a favorite aunt in my family. My brothers and sisters were having kids, and I could take them to McDonald's and bring them home. I had the best of every world. So I wouldn't say that any of that held me back. And in fact, when I was asked, when I was sitting with being married, was the first time I had any thought that I wonder if being a sister. And it was really when we talked about having kids, because he wanted lots. And I came from a lot. My family had 7 kids. He had 1 sister. And so he was older, a little bit older than me, about 5 years older than me. So he wanted to start having kids right away. And I said, sure, I agreed with that. And he said, but when we start having kids, he said, we're going to have to pull back from this retreat work. And I knew he was right.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to be home with the kids. And he was right, and it wouldn't be long. He said, as soon as they can, we'll get back into it. And we had good conversations about that. But I remember the one night going home, and when I got home, I used to pray at night. I used to open the Bible and just like Bible roulette, just wherever it landed.
Yeah.
and I remember sitting in my room, getting ready for bed, and just this heavy thing on me, not sure, but I knew it was kind of like the wind was out of my sails, and that never had happened before. I always loved all my time with him, and I just didn't know what that was, and I was a little concerned. And that night when I opened it up, I believe it was from Jeremiah, and it said, I know the plans I have in mind for you. They are plans, a future full of joy, not woe. And so I thought, okay, I can trust. And then it was that very week that it dawned on me that the life of a sister I could actually do that kind of thing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted a family. So I was pretty mixed up.
Mm-hmm. What happened with you and John? What made, like,
Well,
how
you
did that
remember,
end up?
okay. You remember I was telling you about the night that I came home and I had that heaviness on me.
Yeah.
Felt like the wind was out of my sails.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I got home and I started thinking and praying about it, I decided I had a good friend who was a sister, a Dominican sister, the kind of sister that I am now, and that I would talk to her. I did have a spiritual director. I had a priest that I went to regular confession and reconciliation, and I would sometimes meet with him not for reconciliation, just to talk about who God was in my life and what I thought God was drawing me to. Anyway, so I had that going on. I had the charismatic prayer going on. I had a guy I was in love with. I had my family, who was siblings getting married and having kids. So I had all that going on at the same time, and my girlfriends and myself, you know. I had a roommate at that time. I had a roommate. So, but I went to my friend, Sister Mary Jean, and she was a principal at a grade school, and I called her one afternoon on my day off, and I said, can we talk? And she said, sure. Well, I knew her from the prayer meetings. And she said, yeah, is everything okay? And I said, well, yes, of course it is. And she knew John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I went that afternoon and I sat there and I told her all about John, how much I loved him. And I said, you know he's a great guy. And she said, yes, I know he is. And I said, and I'm going to marry him and I'm going to have his kids. And she said, yes, I know that. And I said, but I don't know what to do. And she said, what don't you know what to do? And I said, I think I want to be a sister. And that came out of my mouth. I didn't even know what it meant, except that there was this, it's like falling in love twice.
Yeah.
And needing to figure that out. And so anyway, she told me, I said, what am I going to do? I remember I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I looked up and she just smiled. She said, well, Elise, you don't have to do anything. She said, all you have to do is let God love you. And when she said that, all that heaviness disappeared. The wind was back in my sails. I was going again. And I looked at her and she said, really? She said, it's going to be okay. And you let God love you. And I felt really good because I knew how to do that. God's God. So I knew how to do that. So I went home, and about a week later, and I was a happy camper, and about a week later, I got a phone call from her, and she told me that there was a sister in their community who worked with young women that thought they may want to be a sister. And that sister would help them ask the questions and look for the answers to lead them in the right direction. And that person was called a vocation director. And I said, you mean to tell me, I got upset. I said, you mean to tell me that all this time, all these years, you've had a nun like that and none of us knew it? Because I also had a girlfriend who was thinking about being a sister also. Mm-hmm. And she was with the Franciscans. She was thinking about it. She hadn't entered. Anyway, so I said, you mean to tell me there's such a person? And she said, yes, yes. So anyway, she gave me the phone number, and I called her, and we met, and she invited me over to Sacred Heart Convent, which is where I live now. And my apartment wasn't far, so on my day off, I would come over and help out and pray with the sisters. I loved the way that they prayed. I love that we chant, mm-hmm. And use our body for prayer, and I just loved that. Yeah. And so eventually, her name was Sister Margaret Rose, the vocation director, mm-hmm. and eventually she said to me, you know, Elise, if you're serious, well, that was right around Christmas, I guess.
Okay.
And then she said to me, No, excuse me, it was a little bit later than that. But anyway, she said, if you're serious about this, you have to tell John. Because I had been visiting the convent for several months and hadn't told John. But he knew, but I didn't come out and say to him I was thinking about being a sister.
Yeah.
But sometimes he would pick me up after prayers, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when we, then I had to tell him.
Mm.
So do you want to know what that was like?
Yeah. How was that like telling him that? That must have been hard.
It was. And when you want to do that and you're in love with somebody, don't do it on the couch. It's hard to do that on the couch. But we sat down. First of all, I went to his office that day and I told him that I wanted to fix supper for him that night at his house. He had his own house. And he said, okay. He said, are you sure? And I said, yeah. And when he got home, I had a good meal fixed. A good cook. Anyway, and I said, before we do anything, we need to talk. And we sat down on the couch and we were holding hands. That makes it all harder. Yeah. But it was wonderful. So we're holding hands and I said, John, I said, you know that I love you. And he said, yes, I know that. And I said, and you know that I'm going to marry you. And he said, I certainly hope so. And I said, and you know that if I have anyone's children, they're going to be yours. And he said, I pray that's true. Something like that. And so we were holding hands really, really tight. And I said, John, I think I'm going to be a sister. And we were just holding each other's hands and looking at each other. And he said, I didn't even finish my words. I said, I think, and he took my hand, he held them really, really tight, and he said, you're going to be a sister. And I looked at him, and I got mad. I got mad, and I said, oh, my mother told you, because he and my mom are really good friends, and I had only told my mom. Mm-hmm. My mom and one girlfriend. And he said, no, Lise, we're still holding hands. He said, no, Lise, he said, I don't need a brick wall to fall on me. He said, and then he said something very, very precious, and I've always remembered it. It was so true right from inside of him. He said, I've always known your heart was too big for one person. Yeah. Mm. Yeah. So then, but we kept in touch. You know, the first 3 years when you're in the convent, you aren't in any vows. Okay. And you're learning to be a sister. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I stayed in touch with him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My mom became very sick during that time, actually, and so it was good to lean on him for some of that. So yeah. But this life has been good. Yeah. It has. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's something about, for me, there's something about what it means to live in a readiness, to wake up every morning, and I just have a life that's structured that helps me be my best self, and hopefully, as I'm the best Elise Marie Ramirez OP, just the best Elise Marie Ramirez, I'm a good OP. So I like my life, and I'm grateful for it.